You may be wondering why I'm wearing this faded LSU cap out in the garden today. Well, in this episode of Growing Some Louisiana History, you'll find out, so stay tuned. Hey folks, welcome back to another episode of Growing Some Louisiana History with me, David Hubbell. And I'm here to share with you some of my growing exploits of vegetables in my garden here in Mobile, where I specialize in trying to focus on Louisiana heirlooms and hybrids that have been recommended over the years for the Louisiana gardener. Why, you may ask, am I interested in that? Well, that's my heritage and my background, and that's why I focus on that. First of all, thank you for everybody who's already given me a like and subscribed to the David J. Hubbell YouTube channel. I really appreciate that, and that helps me know that people are interested in hearing about this type of subject. So, if you haven't done it already, please do so. As I mentioned in the teaser, you may be wondering why I'm wearing this faded old LSU hat. Well, it has to do with two of the varieties I'm growing, well, specifically one, and it also has to tie back to my dad, Wayne Hubbell. He passed away in 2016. He had quite a collection of LSU hats. And this one in particular is one he used to wear out in his garden all the time. He used to grow big gardens back when we lived in Houston and in Mobile, and then even in Fairhope. And so this one, as you can tell, he wore a lot, and it got quite a bit faded between that and fishing. So he spent a lot of time with this hat. And so he was born in 1943, and that ties into one of the tomato varieties I'm looking at now. It's called Louisiana Dixie. And even though it was shown to be developed around 1936, it looks like it was really pushed out into the market as part of the Victory Garden programs during World War II. One of the earliest mentions I found of it is in the Baton Rouge Advocate from 1943, the year my dad was born. So that's what I'm kind of tying these two together. But what makes the Dixie so special is that it is a heat-tolerant tomato, which was perfect for the South Louisiana area and climate. It was noted as not being wilt resistant, but it's a pink tomato. It's a 90-day tomato. And I've read somewhere that it looks like it's indeterminate, but then others have said it's determinate. So I've got to try to finalize and figure out if that is the case. And I'll probably go ahead and put that in the show notes below. But anyway, it takes a lot longer, and you'll see that I've grown this in the past. I like it. It's a pinkish tomato, as I mentioned, and it's listed as being kind of flat, global, but in shape. Most of the ones I grew have been more globe shape. So sometimes you have to wonder when you get these heirloom seeds whether or not are they really the same seed that they were advertised back in the 1940s, or have they been morphed or hybridized with something else. So you don't really know. You're kind of trusting and hoping that that's the case. I believe I got these from Victory Seed Company, who's I'm going to use one of their pictures in case, because it'll give you an idea what the fruit looks like. But you'll see in the garden, I've got a couple growing now. Not really a whole lot on it now, but so far it's done good over the past several years. It's listed as being a cross between Louisiana Pink and Walter Richard, which I haven't really come across that. But it was noted as being developed in 1936 by Dr. Julian C. Miller, Sr., head of the horticultural department at LSU. He actually founded the horticultural department, as far as I can understand from the history that I found online, and he was there for 37 years. But anyway, that ties the LSU garb to the tomato again. It was listed mostly as being really good for your home garden, and I've had it before and I've liked it. It's listed as pink, but the ones I've grown seem to be a little redder. So my Louisiana Dixie tomato is here. You can see it's got a nice, good sized leaves, really. Really only got one tomato on it thus far. If we can zoom in there so get a good look at it. But it really doesn't have a lot of flowers on it. It's listed as a good heat-tolerant tomato, and not necessarily good for wilt. This one's doing pretty well, and it's way over 80 inches tall from the base of the bed on up. But as you can see, I've only got one tomato on it. And I believe I was reading on a few other people's pages that they have had low yields on these too. Now, of course, it's also listed as a 90-day tomato for high heat. So I'm wondering if maybe part of the reason that I haven't seen a whole lot of other tomatoes on it is because I haven't received a whole lot of hot days, but we're starting to get into in this past week. So we'll see if some of these flowers here can get us something. Now this is the one on the back end, and you can see it's not doing well at all. And as noted in the description, the Louisiana Dixie is not really known for its wilt tolerance, but it's good from the standpoint of heat, but not wilt. So the other variety I'm featuring in this episode is called the Louisiana Gulf State, and it also was developed by Dr. Julian Miller. Back it said around 1936, although the big push for these didn't seem to come out in the papers until like the 1940s, like 1948 and 1950. So it's listed as being wilt resistant and heat tolerant. It's a 75 to 80 day tomato versus the Dixies, which I said were 90 days. Its claim to fame seems to be that the skin's a little tougher and it's resistant to cracking. So that's an advantage, as anybody knows, in South Louisiana or on the Gulf Coast, that we get those heavy rains and you end up getting the splitting skins from either too much water or either too much heat. So these seem to have been marketed both for a home garden, as well as for commercial growers. I've heard that it's a mix of the Gulf market variety, and that's been one of the ones that's been really described as being very tasty and highly prized by a lot. And I've grown this with fairly good success over the years, and I've liked it. So I'm hoping and you can see I'll have quite a few coming on the vine there. So I'm looking forward to these. It should also be noted that these are about 8 to 12 ounce in size, and they are more flattened in globe shape. So the other ones were listed that, but they can be globe shape or flattened in globe shape. And you'll see these are a little flatter out there, especially compared to what you're seeing, what I've been told is my Louisiana Dixies. The Louisiana Gulf State is also listed as a pink tomato. I haven't really found any of these nearly as pink as the Louisiana Pinks, but they supposedly have been crossbred from them, so they're supposed to have a pinkish hue to them. Although, like I said, if you look at the pictures that you see from me or online, they still seem to be a lot more red. So they may have started that way, and maybe they were morphed into something where they became more red, or the seed stock that we got has been more prevalently red. So who knows? It's just an interesting footnote to see how these things were described back when they came out and what you can actually grow now. Now these are the Louisiana Gulf State, and you can see that these are coming on fairly well. I've got two of these as well. The leaves are regular shape, not as big as the Dixies. In both of these cases, you can see this one's a little more flattened globe shape than the Dixie, which seemed to have a little more globe. This is more of a flattened globe so far. And the flowers are past their prime on this one. And here's some more on the back end plant. Now, so far in my case, it seems like the Dixies especially and the Gulf State have not put on as much as what I have seen from the Creole or celebrity varieties, or even the Louisiana red and pink we looked at last week. Now a little bit on the developer of these tomatoes, Dr. Julian C. Miller Sr. Now if you're an LSU alumni or you visit the campus, you might notice there's a J.C. Miller Hall. I think that's how it's described. Anyway, it's named in his honor. And Julian C. Miller, he was originally from South Carolina, Lexington, South Carolina, born 1895. And he went to Clemson and Cornell and then he ended up getting his PhD at Cornell, and I believe he ended up at LSU about 1929. And at the time when he arrived, he was a horticulturist, and he was only one of 4 in the state. And so he was tasked with starting and heading this department to develop in horticultural studies at LSU. And he was there for 37 years. He worked on a lot of things like sweet peas or English peas, lima beans. Sweet potatoes is what he was really known for, as well as strawberries. And as anybody in South Louisiana knows, those are some big cash crops out there. So Dr. Julian C. Miller Sr. died in 1971. And even though he's been gone for over 50 years, his impact on Louisiana horticulture and cultural studies along the Gulf South are still being felt today. So we appreciate all the work that he did and the fine foundations he laid for what has certainly become one of the finest horticultural programs in the United States. So next time you see the J.C. Miller Hall at LSU, maybe you'll think about it, Dr. Miller and all his contributions to horticulture and home gardens and the food that we eat on our table today. Thank you folks for tuning in again for another episode of Growing Some Louisiana History. If you haven't already done so, please do me a favor. Hit the subscribe button to the David J. Hubbell YouTube page, as well as click the like button and share with all your tomato loving and vegetable history loving friends. And don't forget to click that bell to be alerted to all upcoming videos that will come out. I've got probably 2 more tomato varieties, and we'll revisit this one to see how we're progressing, because like I said before, we're in the early stages produce, but we'll do a part 2 so you can see what these look like, and then hopefully it'll be what they look like and a taste test to kind of give you an idea of my thoughts on it, at least. Oh, and I got something else that might be interesting to folks. An heirloom tobacco, Pepere tobacco. So I'll do a little show on that in the future too. So thanks for tuning in. I'll see you next week.